Welcome to the party, pals. This is GRC Mafia, B-Dubs here, and we're here to break down barriers and foster collaboration and community working towards a more secure future. We're here to learn and grow together, and today we have CISO Assistant here to show us a walkthrough of self-hosting our own CISO Assistant. So I am going to turn this over to Abder to show us all the new features in CISO Assistant. Welcome, Abder.
Hey, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
Awesome. So let's dive in straight ahead and maybe check the logistics, screen sharing to
All
make sure
right.
that we're all set. Awesome. Right, looks good. So yeah, for this session, we kind of discussed with the study GRC team and GRC Mafia that there's possibility of doing a refresher. So this will be a two-part session. The one that I'm about to show is more about holistic overview about what the application does, what are the problems we're solving with this, so very high level. And we're going to focus specifically for about like 30-minute-ish around the self-hosting installation. Some of you probably are familiar with what the application does, and some of you had struggled with very specific needs for installation on premises. So we'll be focusing on that. And it will be second part probably in 2 weeks or something to go over the application to details and showcase some of the coolest features that were released recently.
Well, I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, let's see how it goes with the demo because sometimes infrastructure and everything there can go south.
Oh, yeah.
So let's start with some basics. So what CISO Assistant is about? It's a platform for GRC, but not only. But essentially, I like always to start with this kind of overview about the value proposal or the problem framing. So those are the kind of the core issues that we identified with the community that we wanted to focus on. And maybe some of you recognize some of them that you're going through currently. So good news, you have a solution and it's open source and it's free that can fix and help you at least fix some of those issues. The first one and the most annoying one is the fragmentation. So what I mean by this is that around GRC and around cybersecurity program management, you have a lot of documentations, a lot of controls, tracking, follow-ups, policies, so many objects. And you kind of lose track about what is the value there. And this is what we wanted to address with CISO Assistant by providing this one-stop shop approach and leveraging more smart links between compliance, risk assessment, vendor reviews, exceptions, and so on. And the list keeps growing thanks to the feedbacks and thanks to the community. And we're pretty excited now that we believe that we have good coverage, and we actually seen huge benefit from the users that it's helping them actually having more focus and sharper actions because they have less context switching between all their activities. Um, yeah, I hear probably someone recognize him or herself in this illustration. So that's like the softer version about fragmentation. Then we have the other issue around GRC, which is the repetition, and that's why GRC usually has this kind of bad rep regarding the fact that it's more about paperwork, which is should not be. Because we keep repeating a lot of actions, we keep duplicating the paperwork, and in order to solve this, we came up with a few innovative approaches. Again, we will go into details in the session 2, but essentially it's this idea of decoupling your actions from the audits, from the risk assessment to be able to reuse them. So the trick is pretty straightforward, is that instead of having your action plan living within the audit, it lives outside as a common action plan, and then you just create links. So with this trick, whenever you do a revision of your audits, or you need to do a risk assessment, or you need to do a pen test follow-up, or whatever, you create links. And this, with this idea, we've been able to push GRC toward more an operational approach where you're leveraging your brain power and focusing on the actions and then just creating smart links there. In order also to avoid repetitions, there's a catalog with a lot of standards and frameworks from all over the world with multiple languages. And you can even add yours if you feel so. There are mapping features to move between frameworks. And I think this is one of the most annoying part about GRC is that sometimes you finish your work, you're happy about the results, and bam, someone comes up with a new standards or new law or a new industry or a new region that require you to put more and start over. Thanks to the mapping feature, you can move from whatever you've done and have kind of pivot and reuse what you've done automatically on a different one. Let's say, I don't know, you spent the past month structuring your cybersecurity program around NIST CSF, and then you have to work with DoD, and now you need to start over and do CMMC. Thanks to this kind of features, you can reuse what you've done automatically. Then you can have multiple export and import capabilities, again, using open format because it's part of the open source vision. You can clone, and you have an API and CLI to automate a lot of actions there. Then I think one of the other issues around the reporting, you have built-in capabilities for analytics, automated reporting, a smart engine called X-Ray that will scan whatever you're doing locally to tell you about some incoherences in your inputs. And you can also generate a lot of automated reporting directly or through the API. And everything that I'm showing here is a part of our commitment toward the community by providing a free and full open source edition. It's not a freemium, so you can keep it free for forever, as long as that you run it on your side. And this is why we have this session about the installation. And if you decide to go with the pro plan where you have support and extra features to scale up your usage, you can go with that both on SaaS or on premises. Last but not least is that you have this flexibility between SaaS and self-hosted, and everything is based on an open format where you can customize your catalog, your frameworks, your catalog of threads, and so many things there. With that being said, let's jump to the topic. And if you just tune in, this is part one that will be focusing on the installation, on which we kind of shaped with the GRC Mafia the topic around self-hosting options. For the demo of today, I'm going to be focusing on 3 use cases. The standard one, which is you just starting with the local installation. You are just curious about the app. You want to see how it works. We're going to do this with the default Docker Compose. Then we will install it on a VM with 2 flavors. One with a hypervisor that can be running on your infrastructure, your home lab, or wherever. And we're going to finish with one around cloud deployment using a VPS, for instance, with full production-ready setup. The Kubernetes part, I'm going to leave it for next time because there's so many like fine-grained aspect there, but keep in mind that it's also available thanks to the Helm chart. So long story short, if you're looking for a starting point for deployment, we will go with Docker Compose with those 2 options. And if you're looking for something like large scale with a actual production ready, with high availability and so on, you probably want to go with Helm chart on Kubernetes. Please use the chat if something is not clear as I go on the presentation, and we can make it more interactive if something is not clear enough. Okay, I'm just like taking a look. I'm actually installing Community Edition. Yeah, it will be fun to to follow up with you like right there. So let's dive in. First thing first is you want to start by picking the repo. So you go straight ahead to the whatever search engine you have. You will end up on our GitHub repository, as you can see here. I think we're pretty good on the SEO. So whenever you type CISO assistant, it should be on top of the list. And if you click onto the website, you always have this community button. This will bring you to the repo. If you have GitHub account, you will have extra features, but you don't need to sign in. Actually, you can just go straight here and do a copy of this URL to do a git clone. And if you don't, you are not familiar with Git and Git clone, and you're allergic to those kind of things, there's a shorter and faster way, which is downloading the zip that you can actually run pretty quickly without any Git installation. In all cases, you will need starting points with the files that you have here. And I just, for the sake of time saving, I already made a clone here. And let's look at what we have. The files that are most important for us will be this one, docker compose.sh, and the other file, which is the docker compose.yaml, that contains a description for docker compose. All right, so let's take a look real quickly at what it contains before we run it, so that you get the gist of what it has. So essentially, it describes 3 services: a backend, GUI, which is our orchestrator and scheduler, and the front end. Those are the 3 main components of CISO Assistant. And then we have a proxy that is Caddy. It's pretty nice because it does a lot of things off the shelf, like TLS, either internal or external. And we'll see how cool it will be when we're going to run it on the VPS. So nothing fancy here, but you see that there's some settings that you can come back and tune them. For most cases, if you're just like starting, you don't need to touch literally anything. You just come to the repo and you run docker compose.sh, and it will start doing its magic, pull in the images of the 3 components. I didn't script anything, so maybe we will have some crash or something weird. So we'll see this as we go. All right, so the first thing, this will be pulling the images, and then it starts the init phase. You can notice now that in order to avoid any synchronization, it will stay in waiting mode until it will finish all the indexing. So this is cool because it will avoid any race condition about the access to the database or anything like this. And it will, what it's doing currently, we can actually look at the logs, by the way, later on. But what it's doing, it's pre-indexing all the frameworks. I mentioned there's like 70 standards. Actually, there are 80 or 82, because about 15% of our standards are community-driven. People from Spain, from South America, from South Korea, from Bulgaria, Netherlands, Belgium, France, and so many places all over the world have been contributing, and they're pushing their standards to help their community grow in on GRC topics. Okay, it's already over, actually. I didn't even get time to finish. So once it finished the initialization, you will see a prompt to, yeah, I will go back, I will go over the principle in a second. So once you run the docker compose.sh, it done the initialization, and then it will ask you to create the first user. I'm going to just do something very basic here, if I'm not doing any typo. Okay. So this will be your first user to init the app. And since I'm doing the minimum here for the installation, I will be connecting with this URL, as I didn't change anything on the app. So, okay, moment of truth. Let's pick one instance, and there we go. So you'll get the security warning that could vary depending on your browser, but what it's telling you is about the TLS. We have TLS by default, but since we have not put any PKI and we have not set any specific actually certificate, it's just telling you that actually it's kind of internal certificate. So you just need to be notified about this information and see it's working straight off the gate. When you're starting, you will see this prompt telling you that you can actually go with the guided tour or load demo data. I highly recommend doing both, and you can actually trigger them later on from those 3 dots here. But let's pick some demo data because sometimes it could be a bit challenging to see everything empty. When you do this, next time you come to analytics, you see some pre-filled information, which kind of bootstrap the installation for you, which will give you a starting point to see how it could look like once you start inputting some information there. So with this, we just confirmed that the installation for local setup with no changes at all is working straight out the gate. And we can maybe take a look at the questions if I missed something. All right. There, I'm actually installing. Okay. I hope that you've been able to follow along 8-bit only with the installation steps. All right. You joined. Okay, so what we've done, Suyukti, is essentially we are working around the installation of CISO Assistant with 3 flavors for self-hosted. You just need a Linux-based system. It could be macOS or whatever. And actually, even Windows can work if you enable Docker Compose with WSL2. We'll have some documentation on that as well. And we're showing the all possibilities of installing CISO Assistant, like on premises and in self-hosted mode. All right, thank you for reminding the repo. And cool. All right, let's continue. Now that we finished the setup, you could also want to go a bit further because this one is more for your own usage, where you're gonna want to play with the applications. But what's cool about the app, it's designed for collaborative approach. You want to work with your team and structure your whole cybersecurity program with your colleagues, with the rest of the IT, with your management. So you want to probably install it somewhere which is reachable for the others. This is where the VM will make sense. And usually for the VM, even if you can run it locally on your workstation, it's better to have it remotely on a different one. For the sake of the demo, I've just like bootstrap a VM on my Proxmox. Obviously, you could have whatever hypervisor or VM orchestrator on your side. I'm just using this because it's one of the classic in open source VM management systems. And I have my home lab based on Proxmox. So there's a lot of resources and content out there to get started with Proxmox. This is not the topic here. But for the sake of this VM, I'm going to pick this one that I was using for Waza or Wazu, depending how you pronounce it. And just checking this VM if it has, yeah, okay, cool. I think it's reachable on my LAN. I'm going to pick this one and move on to the second option. So if I'm trying to illustrate the second option that I'm about to build here, let's zoom out. And essentially, the trick that we'll be doing is that I'm going to have a VM running on a hypervisor. Let's put it this way. And this hypervisor is on my LAN. And I'm going to be running my workstation. So here, user. So basically, what we'll be doing for the next part of demo is something like this, right? So the cool part about this is that you can run it like in your company or wherever, and you can have like multi users actually reaching the setup or reaching the CISO Assistant instance with the setup. All right, so let's do that. And the first thing that I'll be doing is I'm checking the IP that I've noticed earlier. Good. Do I have Docker properly installed? Yeah, cool. Do I have Python? Yeah, cool. Okay, so this one is a bit old, but should do the trick. So yeah, let's go straight ahead to clone. Do I have a clone? Yeah, I have one. I just for time sake, and I'm gonna switch to sudo for the rest of this one. And let's zoom in a bit. I hope that zoom is like more comfortable this way for the others. So what do we have here? We have the repo as we've seen earlier, but now what I'll be focusing on for the setup is I know that I need to configure my Docker Compose to adjust it for the networking and the um, environment variables that need to be adjusted for the whole protection of TLS and so on. But I don't want to go into all those nuances. I'm going to be using a recent addition of CISO Assistant, which calls the config builder. So the config builder is essentially, let's put it this way, is essentially a Python script that will build your configuration depending on how you will be using it. So I will be running this. So first thing first, be doing Python 3, running a creating venv, and there we go. I'm going to source it. There are different ways to do this, but I'm just doing the simplest one. Just running Python, preparing everything that we need in. I'm going to install my requirement for the script. Give it a second. There we go. And now I can literally do this, Python 3, and let's create a config. There we go. So the config builder is essentially a wizard that will be asking you a bunch of questions to get you to perfect setup that will match your expectations and your need for your setup. So the trick here is to just answer them as you go along the way, and maybe you can go back and forth and play with it. That's why I'm taking my time so that you can replay and follow along. What we just said is that we're looking for something like this installation, right? So I know that it will be a VM remotely. So this is literally what we will be telling the builder to do. So not local VM. This VM is not internet facing and will not be able to do like TLS externally. So I'm going to just say no. You can customize your own certificates if you have like internal PKI. For now, no. And this question is essentially telling me, and this is like the important one here, is telling me what is the host name, so to speak, that I will be exposing through for CISO Assistant. So let's pick something human friendly like CA as CISO Assistant, home lab, local, and that should be it. What kind of port? You can drop the 8 here to have TLS by default on 443, or let's keep it as it is. I don't mind SQLite. I don't mind Caddy. You can use traffic if you want. For now, I don't need the email notifications, and I'm going to keep the debug mode because it's internal. I want to see what's going on. So the cool part here, again, is that instead of having to fine-tune everything there on the config, it's built for you based on this wizard. So it becomes less technical and you need to be less knowledgeable on Docker Compose. Of course, you can dive in and fine-tune everything as you see fit. And that's pretty cool, is that this is a starting point, and you see it's kind of set all the variables that need to be done for you in their specific sections and configure the proxy, and everything is built for you here automatically based on this setup. Right. Now that I have this, I just need to follow through, and I'm going to run the docker compose.sh as the other, and moment of truth. By the way, this FQDN, fully qualified domain name, probably is not known by my host because, again, we're at the hypervisor level. So let's get, let's see if it's reachable. It's not. 1, 2, 3, because yeah, it doesn't recognize this. Okay, it's not recognized. So what it means that I need maybe to declare it on my etc host. Here, I'm just parallelizing stuff. So let's do this and go here. So basically, I just need a DNS entry. If you have not configured anything on your hypervisor, you can just like copy one from here And the IP that we were working with, what was it again? It was the SSH around, yeah, this one. Okay, so let's do that. And let's use exactly what we gave it as human friendly name, home lab, local, and here the IP is this one. So this is very important to remember is TLS can be done with IPs, but it's ugly and it's not part of the design of TLS. So it's better to have FQDN. So just make sure to add it to your etc host whenever you're creating one. All right, and I just need a space here. We should be good. Okay, exiting the edit mode. All right, quit. Now, if I do a ping, that's better. Okay. All right. So in the meanwhile, I see that the initialization is done. And again, I have a prompt to create my first account. There we go. There we go. All right. So notice here that this time it's not on localhost because I'm not running it within my VM, but it's telling you, keep in mind that you probably need to run it on a different one. So the different one, it happens to be already here on my terminal. So we gonna check moment of truth. All right, it's warming up. And there we go. And we get the warning about the TLS because it's not part of my PKI. And let's check if everything is working as expected. Bam. Okay, we're good. This time, I'm not going to load the demo data just to make sure that you guys are also familiar with this guided tour. So when you run it, it will showcase like the main sections of the menus that you need to go here. And it will showcase what are the first step if you want to get started. And each time you see click on it, so it will walk you through all those steps. You have like the main entries of the menu. So I highly encourage that you go through this guided tour to just get a gist of the main sections of the menu. And in case you clicked elsewhere, it's fine. You can always go back here and you have the guided tour and load demo data just in case you change your mind. Right. So 2 out of 3, and I'm surprised that everything is working without any scripting, without any surprise. Usually there's always something on the infrastructure, but this time we are kind of lucky. All right. So now that we've done the second case, that was designed for like more of a home lab, we will work toward the third one, which is what if I want to deploy it on a VPS, like an actual VM as part of my public cloud. I want real TLS without any warning. I don't want it to specify the port and all those things. So this is the third one that we will add. But before I dive into the third one, let me check if I missed something, or maybe I'm speaking too fast. All right, I got started already, just getting around to learn where things are. Okay, nice. Will you cover user role as you go further? Yeah, I can definitely go back to on the user role to explain the 4 essential roles, definitely in a second, yeah. This is more technical than I expected. I hope it's a good thing, Ben Tech. Yeah, it's just to make sure that everyone who wants to be like self-equipped, you see the affordable part. As long as you can afford the VM on your side, you're good to go with this. All right. Big device, yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go to the third option. Now here, the third case that we want to achieve is, instead of having just this LAN here pointed to a VM, what if I want to go through internet, right? I'm not connecting through an internal network. I want to go through internet and reach CISO assistant running on a VM. So this will be like the more generic case where you want your colleagues, your management, your whole organization to interact with it. And eventually, for those of you who are not familiar with this feature, but CISO Assistant also manages vendor reviews and vendor questionnaires. So in case you want to have your vendors answering their questionnaire directly to the assistant, you probably wanted to go with this route of exposing it to internet to allow them to connect and answer their questionnaire directly there. So let's start by provisioning a VM. Right, where am I? Yeah, there. This is not good. Where am I? Just make sure that SSHing on the right one. Yeah, I just provisioned another VM on which, for the sake of time saving, I've done the same. I installed Docker. Okay, we're good. Do I have Python? I'm good. All right, Control D. And do I have clone? Yeah, I'm good. So let's do the same, sudo here, and let's go to the same directory, which is the config one. And you can see here, it's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to just provision my .env that I mentioned earlier. And on this one, I'm going to be running exactly the same things. Requirement, come on, there we go. Nice. And I'll do again the same. And that's why this config builder is quite powerful, because it gives you about 16 or 17 kind of possible scenario with your own certificate, with internal TLS, with Let's Encrypt based certificates, with Caddy, with Traffic, with SQLite, with Postgres. There's so many flavors, and virtually there's like literally an infinity of flavors there. At least with this one, you will get those top 10 or top 16 already off the shelf. So let's do make config and let's follow through. So what we're looking to achieve is, this time we want to have it internet facing, right? So let's say it's going to be a remote. Is it going to be internet facing? Yes. Am I planning to host this elsewhere? So this time I need to say what is the kind of URL that I will be using, right? This will be my host name. I think I kind of already provisioned a playground or something on this VPS. I'm going to just double check if I've done it properly to make sure. Okay, nice. This is the one. And let's give it that instead of the local host. I'm going to say playground. Just need to be patient to avoid any typos. All right. Now, the cool thing is that I don't want to bother anymore with the port, so I can just drop the 8, because, standard HTTPS is 4.3. So I'm going to just do this. I can switch between SQLite, Postgres, just for the sake of demo. I'm going to keep it this way. We recently introduced the support for traffic, which is a stronger and well-known reverse proxy. So for those of you who are fan of traffic, you can switch to traffic instead of Caddy. But Caddy is quite interesting because it has those batteries included, which it's a good thing to begin with. This time, I'm getting ready to production, so I don't want to enable the debug mode. So we should be good. Okay, let's see moment of truth. And you see, it's pretty much the same thing where I'm relying on the config builder, and I don't need to be tech savvy on Docker Compose. I'm just answering questions about what is the kind of setup I want, and we let the engine build in an optimal setup for the installation. Now, what are we expecting this time is that next time I want to connect to CISO Assistant, I don't want to specify any port. I just want to put a URL, and I'm hoping that this time I won't get any warning about the TLS. So let the application just warm up, and while we're doing this, I'm going to just drop real quickly here to answer the question about the roles to make the most of our time. Yep. All right. All right, let's zoom in a bit. So yeah, the question that was asked a bit earlier about the roles, I don't remember who asked the question, so sorry if I mispronounced your name earlier. So the airbag concept on CISO Assistant is tightly coupled to the domains. What we mean by domains are those kind of bubbles that allow you to isolate your objects so that you make sure that there are sections within your organization where you want to restrict either the authoring, the edition, or the visibility of those objects. So you will do that by identifying domains. And whenever you start actually creating a domain, let's see if I create one here. Let's call it study. I'm having a hard time. Study GRC. There we go. And let's create another one. Let's say that study GRC is different from GRC Mafia. So I can put some specific audits, risk assessments, control plan, all of those things within one and restrict the visibility. How I'm going to achieve this is that whenever I create a new domain, I'm going to have those user groups that are automatically created for me, and I'm going to have 4 of them. The most obvious one are the one around the domain manager. So essentially someone owning that bubble and can assign roles and can change a lot of settings there. So it's kind of the admin of that domain. And then the other obvious one is a reader. So the reader essentially has read access across all the objects of that domain. Then the other two that probably less clear as a first sight, which is the analyst role and the approver role. So analyst is essentially the person that will be doing the authoring, creating content, like doing audits, collecting evidences, doing risk assessment, and all those things. So they have write access, not only read access, write access, but they cannot change the settings of the domain, and they cannot grant any accesses on the domain. The other one, which is the approver, is specifically tightly coupled to the fact that within CISO Assistant, we also have some kind of workflows. One of those workflows is like risk acceptance that we can find in the governance section. Risk acceptance means that when you're doing risk analysis or risk management formally, you want to have someone within the organization that will be owning and accepting that risk while figuring out some mitigation plan or something, right? But you don't want anyone within the organization to accept that risk. Someone needs to be legit, right, to accept that risk. That's why you will have those kind of permissions around the approver so that you can restrict who is legitimate to actually accept this kind of risk. I hope that that explains it. All right. Awesome. So let's resume where we left it. Okay, so it's already over on the initialization. Let's finish what we started, and let's give it my favorite identity, Bob and Alice, to begin with. All right. Moment of truth. What are we looking for? This time, I want to get something more human friendly, and I don't want to see any. I don't want to see any TLS warning this time, and I want to be internet facing. Yeah, there's something here. Let's go. There we go. No TLS warning, and if I'm checking here, the connection is secure. Let's encrypt issued. So I've done literally nothing besides just answering the questions, and I already have a production ready environment with the proper setup. Moment of truth. company. Is it working? Now, there we go. I can load my demo data. Quick spinner. 3, 2, 1. You should unlock it now. There we go. Now it's fully functional. With this, we have at least those 3 configurations where we illustrated the fact that you can have it locally. Out of the box, you just run the docker compose.sh, you're good to go. Or you want to run it with the VM that is local on hypervisor, home lab, or even the VPS cloud that we should seen. And that's why we introduced the config builder that kind of create that bridge for if you're allergic or you don't want to go too much deep on the docker compose, you follow the instruction and it will build you your ideal setup. Am I still on time? Because I remember that we have 40 minutes. All right. We still good? Awesome. All right. I can maybe pick 1 or 2 more questions to finish within the time. And next time we will do a deep dive on the solution now that we have a lot of exciting features like follow-ups, like exception tracking, and so many more concepts that are worth taking the time, and eventually dive a bit further on the third parties, because this is one of the highly requested features on how can we avoid this drama and overhead of sending back and forth those Excel sheets, and how you can provision your vendors to sign in direct to CISO Assistant and answer their questions. All right, so picking up, where did I stop on the questions? Can this Docker be easily moved between OS once it's created, like from Windows to Linux? Oh yeah, definitely. You can customize it, and what you'll need to be like mostly interested in is within the config. Actually, I could have took a different route and go with a different, let's move it to this screen, and I could have go with the config. Let's go here. Let me source my stuff. And on this part, I can do Python 3, and I can run my make config. And they could like answer my questions, prepare them for someone else, right? And the resulting file that will be interesting for me is this one, Docker Compose custom. And you can pick this one and share it with someone else. In case someone doesn't even want to bother with the config builder, you can build your ideal YAML file with the wizard and just send it toward that person. So yeah, definitely it's agnostic to the OS and you can reuse it and renew it. Just keep in mind one important aspect is that when you're dealing with Docker Compose, if you are not using the name dockercompose.yaml, since here it's not Docker compose.yaml, you need to specify the -f parameter. Like here, Docker compose, if I need to interact with this one specifically, you need always to remember to pass the -f. Otherwise, it will use the one from the root, and you could end up in some weird situation. So if you are not using the default name, which is Docker compose.yaml, make sure that you're always adding the -f, the file name. Right. Cool. Yeah, you can use definitely any bastion or any technology to connect to the remote and do that. Which prerequisite should I prepare for deployment on GCP? Because the GCP port is not reachable. So on GCP, it will depend on what kind of compute you're running Rockwell on GCP. If you're going with a VM, basically everything I showed for VM will apply. Just make sure on your network setup, if you're adding some security group or something, that you are allowing the routes there. If the HTTPS port is not reachable for something, maybe there are some other layers that are blocking that, you can switch to a different port and connect by changing it here when you're asked about this question. asset import with CLI in community version. Yeah, definitely. You have asset import. You can do that by going back to this part. In the CLI, we have Clicker. Clicker is CLI for CISO assistant, so Clicker, easier to remember. And once you have the source in, you can simply do this. What's interesting about Clicker is it has like built-in documentation. So if you just like type it, you'll see those kind of information. And for each one of those information, you can do, let's say, auth, and you can see some inline help. For each one of the command, you also have some information. But what's interesting, to go back to your question, is important assets. I recall that I've seen a GitHub issue or something where we have a user who mentioned that there are some fields on their CSV or initial CSV for assets that is not imported. So we will take a look into that and complete it to make sure that you are importing all the information there. All right. I wasn't able to install it with Docker and Windows. Did you show it? No, for Windows, we didn't show it right now. What I mentioned for Windows is that you need WSL2 enabled on your Docker desktop, and you make sure that you have a distro I think you need to do something like WSL -- install and then space Ubuntu -2404 to install an actual distro, because the default settings with Docker Compose are a bit flaky. What we'll be doing maybe next week, we will add support for images for Windows format. This way, even if you have some weird behaviors, because Docker Compose, well, actually Docker Desktop on Windows, sometimes it has some strange behavior. With the new addition that will be introduced next week, it will work regardless of the setup that you have with your WSL2. All right, thank you, Jeffrey. All right, and I think we're good in time.
Yeah, I think you
We're right on
answered
time, right?
pretty much all the questions. Yeah, we're good on time. We have about 8 minutes. If anyone else has any other questions, drop them in chat and we can get Abder to answer them.
Yeah.
But
And of course, there's going to be a replay on the YouTube channel. So in case I went too fast on something, just pick it up and follow through, and you can reduce the speed this time. It will be more manageable, I think. I hope.
for sure.
I haven't mentioned Kubernetes, and I actually thought that it would not fit within the 40 minutes. Next time, we can take some time to describe Kubernetes installation, either with something locally, like Rancher, Kind, or something like this, or something remotely, like EKS, GKE, or EKS from AWS. So we can take our time next time, now that we released a new Helm chart version, and we can answer specific questions around Kubernetes.
Yeah. Well, and thank you so much for coming and doing this. We had lots of good comments, wonderful, thank you, you rock. So we appreciate you doing this and sharing this with everybody and
You're
supporting
welcome.
the community. So
You're welcome, guys.
yeah.
And until next time, I guess, like when we're gonna go deeper on Kubernetes, and I promised you a refresher on all the features. So maybe the other one, it will not be around installation, but more focused on the actual usage and how far can you push CISO Assistant to structure your cybersecurity program.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a cool tool and I love the community aspect of it and the Discord that you have to really take everybody's inputs and add new features. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you guys for having me, and have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
So I'll go ahead and shut down the stream. GRC Mafia, thank you everyone for joining us and taking a look at CISO Assistant with us with Abder. We'll see you on Monday. It will be our next stream at 11 a.m. Central Time. So see you in Discord and next week.
Cheers. Bye.